if you're finding it hard to choose a side in these games, you are not alone. Uh, Evan Abrams, the world famous Evan Abrams. This is the tightest conference. Let us know that this is the tightest conference championship market since 2010. And the first time in the past 20 years, neither side in the game has received 55% or more of spread tickets. So it is a hard one. We are seeing the line solidify. Like I said, we're doing things a little differently today. We're going to make sharp calls part of the championship games breakdowns. As a reminder, catch every episode of The Favorites live on YouTube. So for those enjoying on YouTube, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. I don't think we made it clear last week, Simon, that your Simon Says is the Ravens. My exact decision was the Niners. So I don't know that we'll do a foxhole this week. We will do a big balls. I'm fine if we're doubling up here. But let's start with Kansas City at Baltimore. Baltimore is a 3.5 point favorite. Simon, let's start with short calls.
Yeah, no surprise to anyone. I feel like people kind of understood Sunday night the pros were going to like the Ravens, and that's how it's played out, right? The money's come in on the Ravens, and a couple books have moved to +4 now on this Kansas City Chiefs team, and it just makes sense, right? The pros I talked to, the ones that took the Chiefs, they basically know they had house money right now because they won last week, and their view of it was, I'll just wait and let this number keep going up. And I talked to plenty of guys who have grabbed the 4 now. I saw the 4 come back down, and now that it's gone back up again, it makes me feel a little confident where it's like, okay, more professionals are on the 3.5 with this Ravens team than there are on the Chiefs. And that's simply by just talking to bookmakers and watching the numbers. Like the fact that, if when you go to bed, if there's a 4 and you wake up the next morning, there's still a 4, you don't realize how much action went on last night, where that number was probably bouncing around all night just because people are really split on these games, like you said. But it does feel like it's not as split as you would believe, where the professionals, for the most part, that I've talked to, they like the Ravens. And it feels like the public, for the most part, likes the Chiefs, right? They're of the same view of, well, plenty of pros said last week, which is you're getting Mahomes as a dog. You take him in this spot. I mean, Evan already read us all the trends. Like this is a very profitable spot to take him. So it's interesting where it's split in public perception, but I'd say professionally, the pros love the Ravens. Like if you got the 3, you're feeling pretty good right now, especially when you're seeing a couple of 4s pop up. But me and you joke all the time, Chad. Closing line value is usually loser talk. Me and you had great closing line value last week on Tampa +7. A lot of good that did us. So that's just how it is, where it's like if you got the 3 on the Ravens, you're feeling pretty damn good. The 3.5 doesn't scare me as much as I thought it would. It's really, you know, it really is. If you're a believer in the Chiefs, you might be able to get 4.5 by game time, Chad. Like the way this number feels like it's trending, I feel like it will just keep going up, just because you know the Ravens are getting guys back. Like I've been talking this week, they are getting healthier technically at the right time. Where Kansas City, we still don't know. A couple of their guys are banged up. We're still not sure how 100% healthy they're going to be. So the matchup we already know. We talked about last show. I really do favorite this Baltimore defense. Now the question was, talking to a lot of other professionals, it's like, do you really trust Lamar in this spot over Mahomes? And it's like, I don't really know if I have to really play it that way, right? Like Lamar in that second half, I talked about it. It feels like he kind of found something there, right? This type of confidence where it's like, oh, you can use your legs whenever you want, Lamar. Like you don't have to force the throws in there. Just play smart. And I mean, again, they scored 3 touchdowns last game. They were just on a total roll, total control that second half. And the more I go through this Chiefs defense on film, no doubt was impressed with what they've done this season, how good they played. But me and you can't get over the fact they are so weak against the run. Even when they make adjustments in second halves against teams are still able to move the ball. it just seems like most teams get away from it, right? Like we saw with Josh Allen, they eventually get forced to have to pass the ball because for some reason, once they get down a couple points to Mahomes, they really do panic. And I don't really see the Ravens changing that. Like they've been consistent all season. The only game when I went through and looked through the film that they really panicked and got away from the run was against that Colts team early in the year, where
Yep.
I believe they might have been a 9-point favorite. It was something crazy like that against Minshew, and Minshew pulled the upset off. That was really early in the season. You watch as the season went along, they never really hit that panic mode again. Where even in games that were really close and tight, they stayed true to themselves and they still ran the ball. So I'm still trying to stay dug in here. I'm fading Mahomes, but I definitely haven't bet as much as I thought I was gonna have a bet at this point. Where it's like I thought I was really gonna hammer this Ravens team, and it is the Mahomes effect, where it's like it's an uneasy feeling, Chad, betting against him, especially where Evan gave us that stat. Um, he's been down 7+ points in the playoffs 9 times, or yeah, or no, was it 10 times, Evan? And he's 8-2 straight up. The only two losses were against Tom Brady. It's just like we've
Yeah.
never seen
So
anything. We've never seen anything like it, Chad. So that's
no.
the scary part about betting against him.
So a couple things. Number one, I'm calling it now, even though it was basically Simon Says. It's also going to be Big Balls Bet of the Week, Baltimore Ravens. And I've been
Yeah.
thinking about this so much. This is the ultimate head versus heart debate. Like
Yeah,
the
it's that
Ravens,
meme. You ever seen that meme where the wife or the girlfriend's like in the bed next to the husband, is like, wonder what he's thinking about? It really is. I just cannot stop thinking about this Ravens Chiefs game. Like it's just
yeah,
all week. It's all I can think about.
I'm not going to lie to you. I woke up this morning and I'm like, I'm going to spend the next 2 hours doing even more research on this game. And I was so excited about it. And the more research I did, the more it points to the Ravens as the right side here. The most important matchup in the game, it comes down to how Baltimore's defense handles the middle of the field. That goes from pressure up the middle against Mahomes, because we know that the scariest thing in betting is Mahomes stepping up into the pocket and you don't know where that ball is going to go yet.
Yeah.
You're seeing Mahomes, you can't see the rest of the field on the TV screen. You don't know what's going to happen. And it is so frightening. So, their ability to rush from the middle of the line of scrimmage and their ability to defend the middle of the field, because the Chiefs are just not an explosive team, right? And what we saw them do the past 2 weeks, I think, is screwing with people's heads because of what they did against Miami and what they did against the Bills when we knew the Bills weren't going to be able to defend the middle of the field. And this Ravens defense is honestly historically great. So is the Niners, by the way. We're going to get to that. But these are two of the best defenses historically in terms of weighted DVOA. I know you don't love DVOA, but a lot of people do. So, weighted DVOA measuring their success and the schedules they've played as they've played later in the year. So, you're measuring it against real teams' strengths and weaknesses as we get later into the year and who they really are. These are two top 10 teams. Ravens are number one and since 1980, and Niners are number eight. So these defenses are great. Um, and the Chiefs are missing players, right? Joe Tooney, he's their guard, number one ranked pass blocker, according to Pro Football Focus. He's likely not to play. Trey Smith, other guard, didn't practice on Wednesday because of illness. Isaiah Pacheco didn't practice because of his ankle and toe injuries. So, like, there's issues in all the places where the Chiefs can't have issues.
Yeah, and again, going back to how it's just a lot of people arguing back and forth this week, professional wise, it's just the view is Mahomes in these big moments, it's kind of like the Brady factor where I told you when it came to doing a model and making a number for Brady games, I basically had to throw it out because the model just could not stop underrating Brady and the effect he has on games. And I've talked to plenty of people this week where that's their argument for Mahomes. They're just like, how can you model his game out when it's just like he breaks all the models? Like he wins in games and positions he should not be winning in with talentless teams, right? Like you can say, well, their team has talent this year. Travis Kelce's, again, it's weird because we're about the same age, but he's old in football years. Like this man is clearly over the hill. We've seen this season between the drops and um, it's not like he breaks away right on these long catches. He catches and just falls down for the most part, or maybe he'll break a tackle or two. But they're clearly a different offense. And what Mahomes has done is like why he's in the conversation for one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. It's why people say even if he retired tomorrow, would he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? It's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, why wouldn't he be? It's
Yeah.
like what he's done since he entered the league, winning the division every year, making it to multiple AFC championship games, have two Super Bowls. It's like he doesn't need to do anymore. We already know what the deal is, Mahomes. Um, but like you said, I just believe in the Ravens defense. And it's like all I can do this week, like we said, I'm taking phone calls, doing all this other stuff. When there's only two games, you really do dive into the film. You really want to dive into it and break it down. And I know a lot of people when they dive into film, they're like, well, I only like going a month or a month and a half back when I'm following a team's offense just because they've changed so much from just say 2 months ago. And that is definitely true watching this Chiefs team. Like how much better they are now than they were 2 months ago, where what you just said though could hold true, which again, I don't want to backtrack too much, but it's like they just played Miami and the Bills, two defenses that had major injuries. They're not getting that with the Ravens. So it was just interesting.
No.
I went through the Chiefs film. I do see what they're doing and why it's working right now, but I can see so many ways the Ravens can counter it. Like the Ravens really do have the pieces on defense to counter what they want to do offensively. And we use it I talked about last show where it's like a reasoning of people to go back and watch that 49ers game against the Ravens. It's like they can do the exact same thing against this 49ers, against this Kansas City team they did against the 49ers. The Ravens can put a safety down onto their best player. Like, I mean, Kittle's not the best player of the 49ers, but taking him away was a big deal, right? They really, the way the 49ers did it, I mean, the Ravens did it was they kept showing Purdy different looks pre-snap. Now, against, Mahomes, that's not going to work, right, Chad? I think we both can agree trying to disguise coverage against Mahomes doesn't work. And the worst thing you can do against Mahomes is blitz him. If you blitz Mahomes, he'll burn you. And when I went back and watched this Ravens footage, they're so smart with their blitz packages. Like they really don't force them. You never know who's going to actually be the blitzer, right? They'll have seven guys on the line and none of them will even be the blitzer, right? The linebackers will actually drop back and they'll have a random cornerback or safety drop in and be the blitzer. So I'm just the more I break down the film on the Ravens defense, I'm not worried about it. And obviously, we talked offensively. I do think the advantage is towards this Ravens team. So the only reason this number isn't 7, which I would think most people thought it could be, is because of Mahomes. Like Mahomes is easily worth 3 or 4 points
Yeah.
to whatever talent they're lacking compared to the Ravens, he makes up for. So, yeah, like to me, I told you, Chad, I made this number 4 when it was 3. It's gone up to 3.5. Now a couple of books are touching 4. People are like, well, would you take the Chiefs now at 4, 4.5? I wouldn't fault you for it, but I wouldn't personally. Like I still think the Ravens are the play here. So totally get when people talk about the model, and I already told you it's like I'm probably off a little bit on this Mahomes number, but am I really off by that much when I talked about it being 4 and it's moved all the way from 3 up to 4? It's like the books agree with it. So as much as I like to shit on my own model here in the playoffs, it's like at least I got this number right where I took the 3 when it opened nervously. Me and you talked Sunday night. I wasn't too excited to take it, but it felt like it was a bad number. The fact that it's got up to 4 now at a couple books, it makes me feel good, right? I talked to a couple pros, especially a couple pros out in the desert in Vegas, where it's like they were the first couple books to go to 4. Like a lot of Jersey books didn't hit 4 right away, but they did out in Vegas, which again, that's professional money coming in early on this Ravens team. So not shocked to see the professionals on this side. I am shocked to see how split it is between public perception.
Raybon had a good idea. I listened to him and Stuckey
Yeah.
on their podcast this morning, Action Network Pod. Check it out. He took the Ravens -2.5 in the first half. And I know you always call that the coward's play, but we like to lean on that sometimes. I actually love that play. I bet it at 2.5 because it takes sort of the Mahomes end of game backdoor factor out of the equation. And of course, it's cowardly, but sometimes I just want to win a bet.
Yeah.
And like the Ravens have been dominant in the first half, dominant in Lamar's career, dominant in Harbaugh's career, dominant this season. Raybon had this stat 13-4 this year in first halves, and they didn't lose against the spread two first halves in a row. So, and they did last week. Um, and last week they lost it because they had a punt return for a touchdown. So I will be playing the first half. I still have not bet on the Ravens side for this game.
Well, interesting. I think I saw a stat from Evan that Lamar struggles in the first quarter, right, Ev? I don't know why. I bet Houston first quarter, and I was positive it was from reading an Evan article where it's like Lamar for some reason the first quarter does not cover, and I'm almost positive I covered. I think the number was 3 or 3.5, and it did cover. But yeah, that's interesting. Lamar in the first half. That could be a sneaky play. If people want to take it,
Yep.
2.5. We know the Chiefs like to kick. They like to defer to second half. So again, that's another advantage if you want to bet the first half, where it's like it already obviously boost up that Ravens team to take first half. But yeah, I get why you're scared, Chad. Like it's scary taking the 3.5, -3.5 against Mahomes, but that's why we got to play these spots.